So previously I made a legendary effects tier list for your weapons, so by popular demand and by something I wanted to do personally, we are also going to be doing the legendary armor effects. These are going to be the 1-star specifically. If you want to see the 2 and 3-star perk tier list just like I did with the weapons, just like this video, subscribe, stick around for more videos, leave a quick comment, stuff like that, you know, the usual YouTube stuff. There will be timestamps for all these perks in alphabetical order, so if you guys just want to skip to the perks you care about, you definitely can. But first up is going to be Aristocrats. Grants plus 20% energy and damage resistance the higher your caps. Immediately I'm putting this over into A tier, and the reasoning why is because it's not necessarily bad, it's just the up cost for the 20 bonus reduction is so damn expensive. You have to be carrying around 30,000 caps at all times in order for this to proc. Honestly, later in the game this perk is pretty damn viable if you're rich, but early on, especially up until probably level 200, I don't see many players using this perk, but I'm not going to use that as a way to knock it down lower, but it's definitely a tier perk when used in the right way. Now we have Assassins, minus 15% damage from humans. Immediately this is going into F tier. Yes, damage from certain factions can be decent depending on what you're doing, but in the same aspects, it's humans and they're very easy to kill. They don't do a lot of damage. PvP in Fallout 76 is basically dead, so there's really no reason to be running this. Auto Stim automatically uses a stim pack when you're hit while health is 25% or less. This procs once every minute. This I'm going to throw into A tier. Now this may be a surprising A tier, but honestly auto stim is one of those perks where you just kind of put it on one of your armor pieces and forget about it. I sometimes just get lost in the sauce when it comes to playing this game, so it just really depends on your playstyle. If you're sitting back sniping, caring about your health every few seconds, then you probably don't get a lot of value out of this, but I'm not going to have that take away from the actual strength of this perk. A lot of melee builds love running this so they don't have to actually pop a stim pack during combats. It just gives you a little bit more damage uptime and a little bit of free survivability. Bolstering grants up to plus 35 energy and damage resistance to lower your health. Now to reach this health threshold, you have to be below 10% health to get the full 35, which is absolutely redonkulous, but some people actually like using bolstering when they do your bloodied builds, which is actually pretty cool. Some people prefer bolstering over the unyielding, and that's just a recommended playstyle if you're going to go for that low health setup and you want to be a little bit tankier. So I'm going to put bolstering into niche because it only really caters to one specific build. Now we have Chameleon, blend with the environment while sneaking and not moving. This is another niche category that I'm going to be throwing in here. It's not, once again, a terrible perk, but it's not that fact. It's the fact that stealth builds in Fallout 76 are very chunky, or clunky, not chunky, that's not the right terminology. They're very clunky in the aspect where if you're by yourself, sometimes it will work like it's intended, but if you're playing this game in a team, it's basically a useless build going for stealth because your friends or anybody you're playing with are going to aggro enemies and you're not going to get the full benefits you would normally from a stealth build. Now Chameleon is like McDonald's, and we go over to Cloaking, which is when your mom says we have McDonald's at home. Cloaking allows you to get a stealth field once every 30 seconds when you receive a melee hit, and that stealth field lasts a whopping 2 seconds of invisibility. Yeah, it's not that great. It's going directly into the F tier, not worth your time, not even worth a tier 3 perk slot, let alone a tier 1 perk slot. Exterminators is minus 15% damage from Mirelurks and bugs, and I'm going to throw in Ghoul Slayers, which is minus 15% from ghouls, and Hunters, which is minus 15% from animals. All three of these are going to be grouped up and going directly into the F- tier, just due to the fact that as a 1-star perk, which is the main perk on your armor, that is the perk that will determine the prefix on your armor, you could be doing so much better than getting a minus 15% damage reduction from a certain faction. Let alone, these are probably the 3 weakest factions in the entire game. We have humans, ghouls, mirelurks, and bugs. There's absolutely no reason for you to be resisting any of those factions, so definitely worthy of the bottom of the barrel perks. We have life-saving. When incapacitated, gain a 50% chance to revive yourself with a stim pack. This can occur every 60 seconds. This is going to be our first S tier perk, and before you yell at me in the comments like you did in the last video, let me explain myself here. When it comes to life saving, it does use a stim pack if if it procs, but it's a 50-50 chance to self-revive, let alone if you're playing in events where explosions are happening and things are going on and things are chaotic and your friends can't get to you or the randoms can't get to you. This is absolutely amazing for solo players. I play this game solo quite often. I personally run this perk on one of my armor pieces, and it's an absolute lifesaver. I play a more risky build with explosives and shotguns, so there's a lot of times where I just down myself in the middle of a building and it sucks, and you dread the fact that you have to run through the whole building once again, but then you just stim yourself back up and you're like, oh, well, that's pretty cool. So it's definitely worthy of the S tier slot, but obviously you only want this on one of your armor pieces. As for the mutants prefix, plus 10 damage and energy resistance if you are mutated, this is going directly into the F tier. Not only is it the lowest damage and energy resistance perk that is in the 1-star perk pool, but it only procs off of 1 mutation. So if you have 5 mutations, you're not going to be getting 50 damage and energy resist. It's only a singular mutation. Not worth your time. I would personally skip it. If you're early on and you have a mutation and you just happen to find one that benefits your build, sure, maybe, but you're definitely not looking for this as a 1-star perk in any case. But not to be confused with Mutant Slayers, minus 15% damage from super mutants specifically, and just like the rest of our faction-based armor perks, this is going directly into F tier. No further explanation needed. It's super mutants. You probably don't need the resistance. And really quick, for the people that are curious why I'm doing this, faction-specific resistance is not going to ever be as strong as overall resistance or damage reduction. Something like the perk card Fireproof, which allows you to take less explosive and fire damage universally, is infinitely more useful than a armor perk that makes you take 15% less Mirelurk damage. So that's the mindset there for those people that are curious. Up next, we got Nocturnal. Damage and energy resistance increases at night. This is a plus 40 in both categories, and this is the first one that I debated on putting into A tier, but honestly, it is more of a niche perk, so it's going into niche. It's not bad, but for the niche builds that like that bonus stuff and bonus stats at night, because there's a lot of things in this game that benefit nighttime builds, especially stealth builds, this is probably a pretty viable armor roll in that case. Now, as for Overeaters, it increases your damage reduction up to 6% as you fill your hunger and thirst meters. The fun thing about this is it has to be above 80%, but one thing you should know, you could have 5 stacks of these on every single piece of your armor, meaning you get a 27.8% overall damage reduction. Is very, very different from energy and physical resistance. They are not the same thing. Everything in the game, everything does 30% less damage to you, and it's infinitely better than any of the faction-based 15%. It's actually double as effective and 5 times as universal, so this is a easy deserving spot of A tier. I would almost put this into S tier, but getting 5 pieces of this can be quite expensive, and a lot of people don't really like the Overeater setup, even though there's a lot of other cards. If you're going for that build, I highly recommend over into the endurance category to get rejuvenated. You get bonus health benefits from being fully fed and fully hydrated, and honestly, all this combined can make Overeaters a pretty good contender for one of the better armor perks. Even though it's not really looked up upon as one of the best in the game, I think it's personally very, very slept on. Now we got Regenerating. Slowly regenerate your health while not in combat. You get 5% of your maximum health slowly, and quite honestly, this is going into the F- tier. If this was a 2-star or a 3-star perk, I would rank it much, much higher as a quality of life, but once again, it's taking up that 1-star perk slot, meaning you have no other room for actual damage. So would you rather take less damage and be tankier in your fights and cater more towards your build, or would you rather slowly regenerate health while you're not fighting, something that you could just do by sitting in your camp, drinking purified water, eating food, drinking a Nuka-Cola Quantum? There's so many things that you could do to just not take up a perk slot. And then we have Troubleshooters, minus 15% damage from robots. I think you know where this one is going. Unyielding, gain plus 3 to all of your special stats except endurance when your health is low. By that, they mean when your health is below 20%, which coincidentally is around the range where bloodied builds like to hover at, and coincidentally is where Nerd Rage, the intelligent perk, likes to proc itself, meaning you could get a bunch of damage boosts with your bloodied build, and honestly, it's not an argument, it's not even a contender at this point. Unyielding is easy S tier perk, probably one of the best armor perks in the game, just for the simple fact that the bloodied build exists. If the bloodied build wasn't a thing, it would probably get knocked down to A, but honestly, if you're going for a bloodied build, you need Unyielding on your armor. It is a absolute must if you want the most damage. Now, I know this is going to be yet another controversial pick from Termex, but we have Vanguards. Grant plus 35 energy and damage resistance the higher your health, and for this one, you have to be above 90% health, and if you're going for a max health build, this is really, really good. The 35-35 is honestly really nice, but what makes Vanguards exponentially really good is it stacks for every single piece you have, so you could have a insane amount of resistance to energy and damage for your maximum health builds, which I personally love to run, and that's what I'm shooting for when it comes to my armor pieces. I have 2 right now out of the 5, and it gets a easy S tier. It's kind of the flip side of the coin for the full health build gamers. You want Vanguard if you want full health, or you want Unyielding if you're going for those bloody builds. Now we also have Weightless, weighs 90% less, and does not count as armor for the Chameleon mutation. Now this is going directly into niche because I want to talk about it. Chameleon is a mutation in Fallout that allows you to have basically infinite invisibility when you're unarmored, stationary, and your weapon is drawn but not attacking. Now, to explain this, if you're wearing a full set of armor, the mutation is basically useless. But if you have a full set of weightless armor, the game thinks you're armorless, allowing you to have the tankiness, but still proccing the benefits from the mutation, allowing for a good stealth build with good armor without crutching off of spamming stealth boys or anything like that. So I put it into niche for that exact reason, but it has a use case and it has a viable build option in the game, unlike many of our other F- tier perks. And for the final perk of the day, we have Zealots or Zealots. You guys have been roasting me in the comments about how to pronounce it, but it is minus 15% damage from Scorch. This is the only faction mod I'm going to put into the niche tier just because of the Scorch Beast Queen events. I know some people that have 1 or 2 armor pieces that have this role simply to take less damage from Scorch Beast. Honestly, not too bad. It's not really something you should be focusing on, and like I said, it is part of the niche category, but that is the tier list for the 1-star perk, guys. If you want to see the 2 or 3 stars, they're a lot larger of a list, but a lot of them are kind of self-explanatory when it comes to armor. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. It's really just a choice of what you personally want. When it comes to the 1-star stuff, that's when it can get a little bit more complicated, and that's why I make these guides for you. If you want to know the best 1-star legendary weapon perks, there is another video on my channel, similar thumbnail, similar style, and if you're new to the game or a newer player, my whole channel is filled with a bunch of great Fallout 76 tips that you guys have been absolutely killing these videos. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Leave a like on it, subscribe, never miss out on another video from me, and I'll see you all later.